Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Welcome to your Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Percy Dehne. This is your weather for October 28th, 2016. You can follow us on these other Alaska Weather showtimes on APB 5:30 p.m., KUAC 9.4 at 5:30 p.m., and 360 North at 7:30 p.m., and Alaska Public Media at 5 a.m. following morning. Now, starting off with tonight's hazards, looks pretty much similar as last night, except for some freezing rain advisories here in the yellow. But starting off with the high winds, we have a high wind warning that remains in effect until 10 a.m. Saturday, and that's for the lower Kobuk and Noatuk valleys. Look for southeasterly winds 35 to 45 with gusts of 60 miles per hour. And then we have high wind warning remains in effect for the Baldwin Peninsula and the Selawik Valley. That's going to be until 6 a.m. for Saturday. And then we have a high wind warning remains in effect until 10 a.m. Saturday for the Chukchinsea coast north of Cape Krusenstern. And look for southeast winds 40 to 50 miles per hour with gusts of 70 miles per hour. And then we have a high wind warning that remains in effect until 6 a.m. Saturday for the northern interior Seward Peninsula. Look for southeasterly winds 35 to 45 with gusts of 60 miles per hour. And then for St. Lawrence Island, we have a high surf advisory remains in effect until 6 a.m. for Sunday, and also along the Bering Strait coast. Look for 8 to 13 feet wave heights breaking near the shore. And then also we have for the St. Lawrence Bering Strait, we have a high wind warning remains in effect until 6 a.m. Saturday. Look for southeasterly winds 45 to 60 with gusts of 75 miles per hour. And then lastly, we have a high wind warning that remains in effect until midnight tonight. That's for the Yukon Delta. And look for gusts, winds 35 to 50 miles per hour with gusts to 65 miles per hour for that. For the freezing rain, we have freezing rain advisories in effect until from 10 p.m. this evening through noon on Saturday. And that's going to be for the upper Kobuk and Noatuk valleys, the central interior, and the upper Kuskokwim Valley. Then the last freezing rain advisory will be 6 p.m. this evening through noon Saturday, and that's for the lower Kobuk and the middle Yukon valleys. Then lastly, we have a high wind watch through the central Aleutians with this strong southerly push of this occluded system that's moving into the Bering. That's going to be from Saturday evening through Sunday evening. And look for winds westerly 50 to 60 miles per hour with possible gusts to 80 miles per hour. And then putting our satellite into motion here, again, you can see the stream of moisture that's moving into from the North Pacific all the way straight through to the Chukchi Sea. Then on the backside, you can see the low pressure system here. That's cyclonic flow right here through the western Aleutians and just south of the Anadyr Gulf region. You get some cooler air here. You can see some open cell cumulus there. Then for the southeast, pretty much clear skies for the southeast panhandle. Just south of the Dixon entrance, you do have some high clouds there, low clouds I should say, with the system that's out of their region there. Otherwise, through the central interior, we're going to have continued low clouds through the next couple days. As this strong southerly push moves in, these clouds stream throughout all the way up to the Barrow region. Otherwise, the Gulf is going to stay pretty much clear there with the high pressure dominating for the most part. Anyway, putting the system into motion again, as you can see, that it's going to move all the way up through the Bering Strait, and so plenty of moisture moving in through the southwest interior. That's going to move from west to east motion across Alaska. Today's weather. Here's this 960 millibar low sitting over the Antarctic Gulf, as well as 962 millibar low over the western Aleutians there. There's that occluded front, and the warm front extending through the southwest interior there, as well as the cold front extending through the eastern Aleutians. Again, the strong southerly push gradient here. You could have some light rain here, but a wintry mix as you get towards Seward Peninsula there along the coastline. The southeast, again, you're going to have high pressure dominating, but there is a weak low pressure system sitting in the British Columbia region with a weak trough. Some scattered rain showers with that. Yakutat was reporting some light scattered showers this afternoon. Otherwise, the low pressure system sitting south of the Dixon entrance spilled some of the clouds towards the Dixon entrance, but nothing to impact weather that much. But tonight's forecast, with this southerly push and warm push of air, is setting up there's the warm air going over the cooler air aloft here through the central and northern territory here, the Brooks Range. That's setting up for a freezing rain scenario, so that's why they put out the freezing rain in those areas. You got some blowing snow. That should be a little bit farther east in the bluish area there, not in the pink. But anyway, along the Arctic coastline, you'll have some blowing snow issues, a tight gradient there. But on the back side of this cold front and the occluded system, you'll have a strong southwesterly push, some scattered rain showers. Again, through the central Bering, you'll have a trough pushing through. Continued tight gradient, westerly flow, and that's why they put out a high wind watch for the central Aleutians with this tight gradient and the cooler air that'll wrap around this system as it enters into the Bering. The southeast, pretty much high pressure dominating over the Yukon Territory, extending up to the British Columbia region. It's some onshore flow through the northern coastal communities, southeast panhandle, some light rain there. Kodiak extending up to the Cook Inlet, southerly flow, some scattered rain showers. Saturday's forecast is occluded low pressure system will start to fill and diminish, but weak trough, they'll swing through the Bering and northern Bering Strait. Continued strong southerly gradient there, so plenty of moisture and rain. Scattered rain showers, they'll be pushed up through the Bering, northern Bering that is. Farther north along the Arctic coastline, you'll have this occluded front pushing through. Again, freezing rain through the morning before the temperatures finally rise above freezing there. But otherwise, farther north, you'll have a weak stationary front, so some snow in those areas. Along the southeast panhandle, again, continued light onshore flow, some light rain there. Otherwise, a low pressure system will form over the Kodiak region and gradually dissipate. But continued onshore flow through the Anchorage Bowl and the Seward Peninsula, so you're going to have the scattered rain showers for that. Here's that next major system approaching the southwest Aleutians there. The Bering, that is, sorry about that. You're going to have a strong southerly gradient, so that moisture will start pumping into the Bering. Sunday's forecast, here's that system that was southwest of the western Aleutians that will be centered in the central Bering, just north of Dutch. Again, it'll intensify to 951 millibar low, include low front with that system, so tight gradient or out ahead of it, southeasterly winds. On the backside, westerly winds. Again, that's why I put out that high wind watch for the central Aleutians. Anyway, with that, you'll have plenty of rain out ahead of it and scattered rain showers behind it. Farther west, cooler air starts filtering in, so you'll see some wintry mix hitting the Shemya region. Farther north, that weak low, they'll remain over the eastern Brooks Range, and they'll dissipate. And then over the, you'll have scattered snow showers for the north. The southeast panhandle, you'll have scattered rain showers, and that's going to be onshore flow with that. Temperatures as the 1 p.m. For the southeast, the warmest temperatures were at 54 at Stewart, British Columbia, 51 at Kloak, and 51 at Sitka. And then for cooler temperatures, 14 over the Copper River Basin at Glen Allen. Farther north, you can see 3 degrees, so that's cooler at Fort Yukon. And at 1 p.m., the coolest temperatures again were farther north, 0 degrees at Arctic Village, 18 degrees at Dead Horse, northwest, pretty much in the lower mid to upper 20s there, 32 at Point Hope, 36 at Tin City, again with that strong southerly push. Temperatures at 1 p.m. along the chain are not surprisingly all in the upper 40s to lower 50s. And 55 there at Dutch, again the strong southerly push, 42 and 40 at the Pribilofs, St. Matthew and St. Paul. And then at Shemya they had 37. Tonight's low temperatures, again, going to be up farther north along with the cooler air, 17 degrees there at Dead Horse, 0 degrees there at Arctic Village. Then along the southwest, pretty much all in the lower 40s, modified somewhat as you go into the southwest region there. They'll be in the upper 30s. The southeast, with some of the warmer temperatures, they'll be in the mid 30s to mid 40s there at Sitka at 45. Tomorrow's high temperatures, again, pretty much going to be all in this mid 40s to upper 40s throughout the Aleutian chain and the Southwest Territory. Cooler temperatures farther north, you're going to have 31 degrees. Again, that's pretty warm with this strong southerly push of warm air into the region. The southeast will have the warmest temperatures again with the high pressure and southerly push here. They're going to have mid 40s and 52 degrees there at Sitka. Flying weather. Marginal to high-fire conditions with the front extending from Kodiak all the way through the southwest interior, extending up into Seward Peninsula and across over into the eastern Siberian range. In the Bering, pretty much covered with that southwesterly push on the backside of this system, so they'll have marginal VFR conditions. And you'll have some IFR to marginal in the morning over the southeast panhandle, some marginal VFR and IFR conditions through the interior waters there, and some over the eastern Alaska range, marginal VFR conditions. Flying weather for afternoon, again, as the system moves farther east, again, you'll have marginal to IFR conditions through just north of Kodiak, extending up through the central interior along the Brooks Range, and then marginal through the northern Bering Strait, extending all the way into the eastern Aleutians. And then your next lower condition, again with that strong included system that's going to build and push through the western Aleutians, you'll have marginal to IFR conditions there that's going to start entering the western to central Aleutians. Tomorrow, flying conditions, AKwx, VFR to marginal VFR conditions, Adigan, VFR to MVFR, Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR to IFR, Rainy, marginal VFR to IFR, Windy, VFR to marginal VFR, Isabel, VFR, Mentasca, VFR conditions, Tanita, VFR conditions, Portage, VFR conditions, Chillicook, VFR conditions. And then tomorrow morning's freezing levels, again with that system moving up, all that warm air pushing in, that's why you have higher freezing levels just south of the western Aleutians. But farther north along the Brooks Range, again you'll have that strong southerly push, so you're going to have higher freezing levels you can see there. Then on the backside with the cooler air in here, you have 2,000 feet, and then the surface just over the eastern Siberian range. In the southeast, pretty much you can see 4,000 to 6,000 feet there as you go along the southeast panhandle, again with southerly push in the region coming up in the Gulf, ranging anywhere from 4,000 to 8,000. Tomorrow's icing above 2,000, pretty much through the Brooks Range, and then it extends with the warmer temperatures above 4,000 through the lower and upper Kuskokwim Valley, and extending down through Kodiak and the southwestern Gulf region above that 7,000. Through the northern Bering and extending down to the eastern Aleutians above 3,000 feet, light to isolated moderate, as well as just entering just the central Aleutians there above 7,000 feet. Tomorrow's jet stream, strong northwesterly push with that jet, and then it digs and it transitions to southerly 95 to 120 going through the southwest interior up to the northern Arctic coastline, and then transitions to more westerly going back through the eastern Beaufort Sea. Then we have the southeast panhandle, northerly jet, and then it digs to southwesterly on the front side of that low going into lower 48. Tomorrow's 9,000 foot winds. Again, a low pressure system just entering the western Aleutians. Pretty strong, 70 knots, southwesterly push, 75, and then it's 35 to 50 through the Bering, and the low over the eastern Siberian region, southwesterly push here, 35 to 45. The southeast, again, weakens here with a high pressure dominating, sitting over here in the southeast panhandle, but Westerly flow there 10 to 15 knots, and then northwesterly 15 to 30 as you go east of the Beaufort Sea. 3,000-foot winds, again, the low pressure system, it's over the eastern Siberian range, southwesterly push 30 to 35 as you enter the southwest Yukon territory. Over the Kodiak, you have a weak low pressure system, southerly flow 20 knots through the Gulf. And then farther north, you have a weak low pressure system, cyclonic flow 20 to 10 knots on the backside of that low, or sitting over the eastern Brooks Range. Tomorrow's turbulence below 5,000, pretty much extending through the Brooks Range all the way down through the southwest Alaska Range, and then below 5,000 with St. Lawrence. Below 5,000 along the chain, extending all the way out to Cape Sereshef. We'll be back with your Marines after this.
We have a big solar flare coming in, so we're out here on an aurora hunt. It's a CME, it's a dynamite, coronal mass ejection. It's when the sun, it kicks off energy and these explosions that are larger than the Earth, explosion type things coming off of sunspots. And if that energy is pointing straight at the Earth, it gets caught up in our magnetic field, and that energy, electrons, come down our magnetic field, collide with oxygen up there about 50 or a couple hundred miles high, and that's what generates the northern lights. My job as the photographer and the aurora hunter is to be in position, you know, location, location, location. And I like to think I'm composing. Mother Nature, it's a bit of a teamwork thing, you know, she's got to put on the show, but I have to be in the right position and of course with the right tools and the know-how. I've stopped keeping track of how much time I spend out here in terms of hours. It's more in terms of weeks or months, or at this point years now. You know, it was always in me. Even when I was a kid growing up in the lower 48, I would spend nights sleeping on our trampoline, just staring at the stars. I'm in 4th grade and I'm going, wow, look at those stars. And I'd see how many nights in a row I could sleep on the trampoline. And I think my record was 23 nights in a row. So I was doing kind of strange things for an Iowa country boy. I can remember specifically the very first time I saw the Northern Lights. It was 1989, the peak of the solar cycle, and I was going to graduate school in Laramie, Wyoming. And all of a sudden we had heard the Northern Lights were out. It's like, what are those? I'd never really seen them before. And my goodness gracious, we were on top of a mountain in the Laramie Range and they were turning blood red. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And the very first picture I took, that was 1990. Now, an old film camera, Pentax K1000 on a plastic Kmart tripod. Took 2 shots on slide film and got them back. And I thought, oh my gosh, this beautiful green thing swirling about. And from that moment, I was hooked. When I realized that you could preserve the auroras on film, I just experimented a ton. I'd had a heaping stack of slides, the no good ones. The experiments gone wrong, you know, too dark, fuzzy, out of focus, too light. I had this huge garbage can full of excess slide film, and that was just the learning curve. Well, when I go out here, it's all about getting the shot. And my wife and I, we've called it the hero shot. But the hero shot is the one where you just come home and you go, look at this. And everyone goes, wow, and you feel like a hero. It's a wonderful feeling, you know. It's good for the ego, of course. It's good for the business. But if you kind of strip that away, it's good for what's inside you, because that's really the hero moment in nature. And Mother Nature's putting on this show that is just mind-blowing. It's unbelievable. When I first resigned from my day job. That was in 1996, and decided I wanted to become a full-time aurora hunter. My goal from that moment and to this day still is to get one hero shot a year. I figured, and I'm talking the kind that somebody wants to buy from you and hang on their wall, where the auroras are extremely bright, very active, turning colors, where you can't believe your eyes. If you're gonna preserve a little sample of that with a photograph, well, it's what we call the hero shot. Wow, what a feeling. I mean, oh, you're elevated, levitating, you are lifted up, your spirits are so high that I love that feeling. And I think I get that so much from seeing cool things in nature that I will go way out of my way to find that. And I can, you know, the next day, well, I'll be just laying there thinking about it and thinking how lucky I was, or how fortunate. Of course, I just, you know, spent 2 weeks sitting there staring at the sky and not seeing anything, so you got to remember that, you know, luck is kind of a relative term, but I still just feel incredibly lucky to be even in a position to where I could have been there, taken a photograph of it, and just mainly experienced it. Well, that feeling could last for days.
Welcome back to your Alaska weather. Now starting off with sea surface temperatures. The cooler temperatures in the blue here, that's why you have the cooler sea surface temperatures. It gets modified with the southerly push here, the green turn a little bit lighter blue there in the northern Bering there. Otherwise, for the southeast panhandle, you're going to have warmer temperatures there. Again, with a southeasterly push here, warmer air pushing in the warmer temperatures in the Gulf. For the sea ice analysis, again, it's built in from the eastern Beaufort and along the Arctic coastline. Again, with the easterly push of winds there, you'll have continued the sea ice to continue to form and fill in. You have some sea ice still in the Kotzebue and the Norton Sound region. Saturday's marine forecast for the southeast. The inside waters, all weak winds out of the north, 10 knots. The outside waters, south to southeast, well, northerly to northeast from Sitka south. Otherwise, they transition southeast from north of Sitka towards Yakutat. Then for Sunday, the inside waters still northerly 10 knots. The outside waters all easterly 10 knots, and then southeasterly towards Yakutat. Wave height 6 to 7 feet. For Saturday, for the south central region, you're going to have marine force small craft advisory winds, that is, through the Barren Islands, the southeasterly flow there. A little weaker as you go farther north towards Seward. Through the Prince William Sound region, easterly winds. Through the Cook Inlet, you're going to have northeasterly flow starting to build at 20 knots in the southern Cook Inlet. And then for the Shelikof and east side of Kodak Island, southwesterly winds 15 knots. Then for Sunday, there'll be small craft winds through the Barren Islands, and then south of there, there'll be gale force, 35 knots, southeasterly winds. Through the northern Cook Inlet, 10 knots northeast, and then easterly 15 knots as you get farther south down the peninsula there. And then through the Prince William Sound region, you have easterly winds at 25 knots. And then for Saturday, for the Alaska Peninsula, again, on the Bering side and the Pacific side, you're going to have a southerly flow, 35 knots, a gale force there. On the Bering side, southwesterly flow going into the Bristol Bay region, and then westerly flow through on the east side in the North Pacific side there through the Shelikof Islands region. And then for Sunday, again, strong push, gale, storm force winds southerly push there on the towards Sand Point, and then southeasterly flow on the Bering side. Wave heights are going to be pretty high, 24 feet, 30 feet there on the Pacific side. And then for Saturday for the Aleutians, You can have storm force winds, southwesterly push, wave heights 37 feet, centered through the central Aleutians there. Little weaker storm force on the Bering side, southwesterly 55 knots. Southwest 35 knots towards Shemya. Pretty strong then there for Dutch, southeasterly on the Bering side 35, and then southerly 55 there on the Pacific side. And then for Sunday, pretty much all westerly flow as the system moves farther east that we've been talking about. So you're going to have hurricane force winds there through the central Aleutians. Wave heights range from anywhere from 37 to 42 feet as you get closer to Dutch. Then it'll be southwesterly on the Pacific side there, south of Dutch, and then southerly 55 knots there on the Bering side. And the little weaker gale force there near Shemya, 18 feet for wave heights. And then the Saturday for the west coast, pretty much all southerly flow, gale force winds southwesterly near the St. Paul and St. George. For Sunday, southeasterly flow, storm force winds there, and then easterly through the St. Lawrence Island region. St. Matthew region, you're going to have a northeasterly flow, 45 knots, and then easterly 50 knots through the George. And then the Arctic coast for Saturday, predominantly all easterly winds, small craft that do become gale force as you get towards Barrow, freezing spray from Dead Horse east, and then you're going to have strong storm force southerly winds coming up through the Bering Strait, again with that strong southerly push of that system that's moving through the Bering. Sunday, predominantly all easterly flow, small craft all the way through, and then they do become gale force as you hit the northern Bering Strait, lower Chukchi Sea there region, and they're going to be southeast 35 to 40. And then tonight's forecast, again, that cold front going to be extending through the southwest, with a cooler front extending through pretty much to the Seward Peninsula. That's a strong southerly push, so they're going to have some freezing rain issues over the central interior, extending up to the lower Korakuk Valley region. Ooh. And then the trough extending through the Bistro Bay region. That'll bring some scattered showers through that region. That's it for your weather. You have a good evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.